Today, I'm going to tackle one of the biggest myths in self-defense, a technique so widely used in combat sports that many people think it's just as effective on the street, but they couldn't be more wrong. Let's check it out. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. How can you say that the jab sucks for self-defense? It's a fundamental tool in boxing, MMA. How could it not be useful on the street? Trust me, I can already hear the comments pouring in. People ready to tell me I'm wrong and that they've knocked someone out with the jab. And sure, I get it. For sport combat, the jab is a key technique. But let me make something perfectly clear. The ring and the street are two entirely different worlds. Now, in a street fight, when your safety, your life, and even the safety of your loved ones are on the line, the jab can actually get you hurt. I know that sounds controversial. I know a lot of people won't want to hear it, but that's exactly why we need to talk about it. Now, the jab is a staple in boxing and MMA for a variety of reasons. It's great for scoring valuable points, controlling distance, testing your opponent's timing, and setting up your next strike. The jab also helps keep your opponent at bay. It disrupts their rhythm and maintain control in a fight where endurance and strategy are key. Now, the jab also allows you to create angles by shifting your position after the punch, which sets up more powerful strikes from better positions. It can be used defensively too, keeping aggressive opponents on their back foot and preventing them from closing the gap. It's also great for masking the delivery of your more powerful strikes like hooks or uppercuts, making them harder to anticipate. And finally, it's a low energy punch, meaning you can use it throughout a match without draining your stamina, which is critical in longer fights where managing your energy is essential. But here's the thing, all of that works in a controlled environment of the ring where you have rules, weight classes, and referees. Now on the street where chaos reigns and there's no one to stop the fight, the jab isn't going to cut it. Let me explain why. Let's start with what really happens in a fight, specifically during the pre-contact stage. Now, most fights don't just explode out of nowhere. There's usually some kind of buildup where you're face-to-face with your assailant, maybe trying to negotiate, de-escalate, or just buy some time. This is also where the adversary will assess your behavior to determine if you're an easy mark. If you hesitate, show fear, or seem unprepared, they'll exploit that. Now, this is where the first strike setup occurs. Now, in my CFA system, a first strike is defined as strategic application of proactive force designed to interrupt the stages of an assault before it escalates into a full-blown self-defense situation. The idea is simple: stop the fight before it even starts. In contemporary fighting arts, we emphasize the importance of using a non-threatening stance. The first strike stance is critical before you initiate your first strike. It facilitates the invisible deployment of a preemptive strike while also protecting your vital targets from potential counterattacks. You can't stand there with your fists up in a traditional guard. That signals aggression and gives your opponent too much information. Instead, you need a de-escalation stance, hands open, palms out, looking non-threatening, but still prepared to strike if needed. This stance lets you engage or disengage depending on the situation, while keeping your adversary in the dark about your true intentions. And here's the issue with the jab. You can't mask it in this situation. The jab is not a first strike tool because it's too telegraphic. The moment you clench your fist and throw that jab, you're giving away your intention. In the pre-contact phase, that's a serious problem. You need strikes that are faster, more powerful, and harder to read. Something like a palm heel or finger jab strike, which can be masked much more easily. If you're finding this information useful or eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel grow and it gets important information out there to keep people safer. And for my regular subscribers, thank you so much for your continued support. Reason number 2, the jab simply lacks neutralizing power. Now, in a street fight, your number one goal is to end the confrontation fast. The jab isn't built for that. It's designed to set up more powerful punches, not to take out your opponent. If your first strike doesn't neutralize the threat, you're leaving the door wide open for a counterattack. And remember, out there on the streets, you could be facing someone who's high on drugs or downright insane. People who can actually be impervious to pain. Now, you can't rely on snappy, probing strikes to stop someone like that. You need 100% power behind each and every punch to make sure you can end the threat immediately. But it's not just about power. You have to target highly vulnerable anatomical points like the eyes and throat. These areas, when struck with force, can neutralize an attacker regardless of pain tolerance. The jab simply doesn't have the stopping power or precision to consistently hit these critical self-defense targets. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people out there, myself included, who can knock someone out with the jab. But let's be real, most people don't have that kind of skill set. Just because a technique works for a select few doesn't mean it's a reliable self-defense technique for everyone else. The jab is simply too risky, too telegraphed, and too weak to depend on when your life or the lives of your loved ones are on the line. Reason number 3, the jab simply prolongs the fight. Now, you don't have time to feel out your opponent in a street fight. The longer the fight lasts, the greater your chances of injury. The jab is simply a probing tool. It's designed to create openings for more devastating strikes. But in self-defense, time is your enemy. You need to end the threat immediately, not prolong the encounter. And here's the thing, the jab simply agitates your opponent. Sure, you might disrupt them for a second or two, but you're also more likely to provoke a more aggressive response. In self-defense, the last thing you want to do is give your attacker more fuel to come at you even harder. You need to shut them down, not rile them up. Now, in self-defense, your job is to end the fight before it begins. You don't have time to experiment or probe with light strikes. That's why the first strike principle is so critical. Strike first, strike fast, strike with authority, and keep the pressure on. Now, of course, you still need a front-side linear blow in your fighting arsenal, especially during a compound attack. That's where the lead straight becomes such a powerful alternative. The lead straight is thrown from your lead arm, and as you twist your lead leg, hip, and shoulder, you deliver a devastating blow with real weight behind it. The difference is in the power. You're not flicking a jab, you're delivering a knockout punch. With the lead straight, you're not just tapping the surface of your opponent like a jab would. You're driving your strike into the target using the fluid shock principle. The fist remains on the target just long enough to penetrate deeply, affecting the nerves and causing maximum damage. Like the jab, targets for the lead straight include the nose, chin, and solar plexus. But unlike the jab, the lead straight relies on weight transfer, making it far more effective in high-stake combat scenarios. In the world of combat sports like boxing and MMA, the jab is a valuable tool. It helps you control distance, set up more powerful strikes, and manage a fight within a controlled environment. But the street is not the ring. There are no referees, there are no rounds, and no rules to protect you. The unpredictability and chaos of a real fight demands on techniques that are decisive, powerful, and effective at stopping a threat immediately. The jab is too risky, too telegraphed for pre-contact situations, too weak, and too likely to prolong the fight when your life or the life of your loved ones are on the line. The distinction between combat sports and real-world self-defense is simple. Sport combat is about points and endurance, while self-defense is purely about survival. That's it for today. Stay sharp, stay safe, and remember, the street has no rules.